existing. Ah, there it is. Okay, fine. Oh, Jesus Christ. Hey guys, hey, it's me, it's Tech. It's Tech Tinker. How you guys doing? Fuck, what the fuck was that? God, the settings on this fucking thing go all over the place. It doesn't help that well, I'm practicing guitar. Okay, so the way my setup is, I have two laptops with two different setups. One is what I'm technically calling my work laptop, which is not this one, not the one that I'm playing on. It's one that I have stuff set up for, like a video editor and what's it called, Photoshop, and my DAW, my recording DAW, and it's the one where I do like all the hard work stuff on, and that is also the one, because it has my DAW, where I practice guitar. And like you can practice guitar without a DAW. It's not that hard, especially if you have like an acoustic guitar, which I do have. But I also have an electric guitar that I also like to use, which is why I'm using my DAW. I run it through my my mixer into my computer, which has the DAW running. I can hear myself with like cool mixer effects and stuff. Which I don't use because predominantly I should get water. Predominantly I'm just trying to learn how to play guitar. But because I'm like, it only has one input. So because I assume what happens is I frequently have to take out my microphone and also take out the connection to the mixer to the computer. Its settings frequently get fucked with, I guess, which might explain what went on just then. I don't know, man. Ugh. Oh, but speaking of guitar practice, in addition to that, okay, so I have been officially studying guitar for about 3 months now. I'm taking a class, but even before then, I had two guitars that I had inherited, I guess you can say, from a relative, and they gave me two apparently really old guitars, and they're good, they're cool, I like them. Hence why I'm using them. And learning music, and especially through a medium that you're unfamiliar with, like me with guitars. I just had this discussion with this guy who I'm kind of friends with. I see him around campus a lot. We had a couple classes together. Learning music is a lot like learning a new language. They'll say there's some people, and they're kind of right, that say that learning music is kind of like learning applied math, because there's a lot of, not exactly math, but there's a lot of numbers stuff that kind of match up to kind of some principles that music runs on. But it is actually very much learning. It's very much like learning another language, and this is because I feel like I feel this way, at least partially because I've been teaching myself Japanese for about 2 years now, maybe a little bit less. It is rough. It's quite rough, especially since Japanese is a non-Romance language, and I'm more familiar with like Spanish and English. And if I want to use a metaphor here, learning Japanese is actually a lot like learning guitar, to my mind at the very least. So if you don't know, and I guess as soon as I'm done with this metaphor, then I'll get water and then we'll get started. Japanese has 3 slightly different alphabets: the 2 kanas and kanji. And if you don't know what they are, the 2 kanas are hiragana and katakana. Hiragana being, I think, I always mix them up sometimes. The alphabet that is used for Japanese native words, stuff like sumu and tamago and stuff like that. Um, since they are Japanese native words, when they get spelled out in hiragana, not counting what's it called, kanji, but we'll get to that. And for loan words and certain other words, so like proper names and such, they'll use katakana, which is mostly based on sound than actual like meaning. And that's how they'll kind of like piece stuff together. And with those two, you kind of have the sum total of most of Japanese, at least if you're going at it from a listener slash speaker standpoint. But if you're going in a reading or writing standpoint, that's when kanji comes into play in this language. So what we need to do is we need to have different symbols that will mean certain parts of this phrase so that we can differentiate them. It's a lot. It's a lot, and it's very complicated. It's so complicated that even native Japanese speakers will be like, "Oh shit, this kanji shit's weird and complicated," and are very much surprised when you learn a lot about it. Anyway, now how this relates to guitar is there's when you are doing individual strings, there's at least two ways to do it. There's, at least to me, there's two different ways to pluck strings, and they both feel different. There's hand plucking, which I mean, it's plucking with your hands. As long as you're like kind of deft with it, it's pretty easy. And then there's plucking with a pick, and that also they're similar, but with my recording, the YouTube stream dropped a little bit, so I'm thinking about swapping out the YouTube stream for or uploading a recording, the recording that I do locally always. Anyway, chords are what, like 80% of all songs are, just like how kanji is 80% of Japanese words, more or less. Chords are you like holding down a certain number of strings while you play a certain other number of strings, and when you do that together, that's when you can really get like the actual melodies going that actually sound good, and they're like, yeah, that's music and songs. And that's when you get all the complex stuff. Like I've been looking at some sheet music for a bunch of other songs that I really like, and like 80% of it is actually going for chords. However, chords are very hard. You have to fucking reach your hand on one end while the other finger goes all the way on the other end, and you have to do bars and shit, and it's all very complicated and hard. It's difficult. Just like how there's a bunch of different kanjis and extension of the metaphor. But you see what I mean, hopefully. But that's enough of that. I'm going to go get some water, and then we'll get started. Thank you for bearing with me. Why is it so low? What the fuck? Wow, testing. Why am I being tracked so low? Yeah, wow, look at that. Testing. Shit. Alright, hold on again. Wah. Test. Okay, there we go. What the fuck was up with that? You know what? Fuck the story I was just about to tell. We're moving on. We need to start before some other bullshit happens. I always forget they spell Sojiro's name super weird. Leaving Sojiro alone in the drawing room, Aoko returned to her bedroom. She closed the door to her room, and as soon as she sat on her bed, she was overcome by the unexpected wave of exhaustion. Sojiro had no way of knowing, but she had been preparing for war. In the event that Alice impulsively pulled out a ploy, Aoko had been ready to react in an instant. She sighed heavily. But not from the fatigue she felt at fighting with Alice.
ちょっと突っぱねすぎたか
Was I too hard on him? She frowned in a dejected frown. What weighed on Aoko's mind was not Alice.
でも甘くするのはあいつのためにならないし
I mean, going easy on him wouldn't be doing him any favors either.
基本おとなしくしてもらった方がいいわけだし
The best thing he could do for himself is to lay low. It'd be trouble if he wandered around like he owned the place, after all. The safest thing for him would be if he holed up in his room, too scared to, out of his wits' end to leave it.
青崎は味方だなんて勘違いされても困るしね
I hope he doesn't think I'm his ally or something.
アリス同様人でなし扱いされた方が楽だわ
Alice is the lucky one. I'd kill to have him treat me as the stranger. She nodded to herself, agreeing with her take on the situation. For the most part, it was a sound plan. If there was a problem, it would be this.
すまない青崎、一つ聞きたいことがあるんだが。
Sorry, Ozaki, I just have one quick question. Ah, look at your room. She also has an acoustic and an electric. That's cool. Although mine's set up a little bit different. And I don't have an amp. What if I had to route it through stuff? Anyway. Looking at a girl's room. Are those backpacks? What is that? Keys? Oh, that's interesting. Snooping. All right. Not 10 minutes have passed since leaving him in the drawing room. For Sojiro to shirk off what he had just said and visit her room so fast, it was like he had no sense of danger at all.
実は外に出たいんだ。
I need to go outside? Of course he would ask to leave the house. Falco lacked the energy for a sarcastic barb.
洋館の中は歩き回らないし、用を済ませたらきちんと戻ってくる。ただ、門限とかあったら聞いておこうと思って。
I will say this of the admittedly very good Grand Order event. They've stepped for the Grand Order event specifically. They really stepped up their like playing with the PNGs of Grand Order. If they do this like silhouette stuff to be like, oh, the camera's behind them to show that they're like talking, or they'll have like depth to it. The likes of which not seen usually in Grand Order. It's very strange. Anyway. I won't wander around the mansion, and I'll come back right away when I'm finished. I just figured I should check if there was like a curfew or something.
でもアルバイトには行くのよね
Work, is it? How'd you know? Sojiro exclaimed in surprise. But it was Aka who desired to display her shock at him.
まあいいわ
Fine, you can go.
基本午後10時までその時間には必ず屋敷にいることその後は夜勤に出かけるなり庭でバーベキューするなり何でも好きにしていい
You should make sure you're back on the estate by 10 every night. As long as you keep the curfew, you can go work your after-school job, have a barbecue in the garden. Do whatever you want. I don't care.
それと玄関に鍵はかかってないから
The front door is never locked anyway.
気のせいじゃなければだけど。
I feel like you're,
青崎、すごく怒ってないか
mad at me.
あんた相手に気を使った自分に呆れ果ててるだけよ
I'm angry, all right, just not with you. angry at myself, caring what happens to you.
外に出るのはいいけど、その前にこの錠剤飲んで。
And before you go out, take this pill.
ん
Oh. Sojiro took the purple pill from her outstretched hand and dubiously put it in his mouth. He told himself that it must have been some kind of medicine.
それじゃあ行ってくる。いろいろありがとう、青崎。
Alright, then I'm off. Thanks for everything, Azaki.
あっそ。今度は窓から出ていかないでよね。
Oh, and don't leave through the window this time, okay? Har har, he thinks. Oh yeah, he was right. Sojiro laughed himself all the way to the foyer, unsure of what exactly he had found funny. Aoko watched him go, both indifferent and amazed all at once.
ま、予定が半日早まっただけか。
Well, that happened about a day earlier than planned.
あの薬を飲ませるの、明日の朝にしてあげようと思ったのに。
He was supposed to take his first pill tomorrow morning. Suspicious. She huffed, ruffling her hair in exasperation, and returned to her room. Discerning what made Sojiro tick was a waste of brain matter. In all likeliness, he was more concerned about missing 2 days of work than his own well-being after being bedridden for 2 days. Fucking... He's doing that many part-times. I wouldn't be surprised that he was like, oh, fuck, my job. With the day's work behind him, Sojiro returned to the mansion.
よし。どこを探しても、2階のホールから上がれる階段はここだけだ。
This must be it. It's the only set of stairs leading up to the second floor hall. It was just before midnight. This was the scene that awaited him beyond the rickety staircase. Not much surprised Sojiro, or rather, being surprised had become normal to him. This scene, however, was enough to leave him speechless. The room allotted to Sojiro. No matter how he looked at it, no matter how he ran it through his mind, was without a shadow of a doubt an attic. This treatment stirred a strange tinge of anxiety in him. Just as he was about to flap onto the taut sheets of his bed, wondering if he could make this work despite the share of other problems, he noticed an awkward courtesy so meager as to be useless.
寒かったら重ねて使うこと。これはサービスとする。
Something to use if you get cold. Consider it a gift. The message in the memo pointed to the meticulous personality of the author. The bed had been perfectly prepared. Carefully setting aside the blanket that had been painstakingly placed on the edge of the bed for him in case he needed it, he looked up at the sky. Though faint, the stars twinkled through the skyline. For a mountain boy, that meager light was more than enough for him. The stark contrast with the drawing room had caught him off guard, but now that he'd collected himself, it wasn't that bad. This room fit his personality. Even if he still wasn't used to the building, he felt more at ease here than he did in any building in the city. Perhaps because it was built on a hill, surrounded by woods. The atmosphere here was a little closer to the mountains than where he used to live.
でも、家の中に霧が出るのはどうなんだろう。
Is it fog for there to be inside? Is it normal for there to be fog inside the house? He crooked his neck, pondering over the spectacle he had witnessed. On his way to his room, Sojiro had encountered what looked like fog in the foyer on the second floor. The misty fog drifted to a portion of the corridor, reminding him of a swarm of mosquitoes. As he stared at it, he swore he could make out a strange landscape as he moved closer to get a better look. Again, out of nowhere, here inside the mansion, a little bluebird darted purposefully in front of him.
鳥
bird? The bird caught his attention, stopping him in his tracks. When he looked to check the fog again, the strange scene had disappeared.
この家隙間でもあるのかな。明日青崎に聞いてみるか。
Maybe the house has a draft. I'll ask Ozaki about it tomorrow. He muttered to himself as he sat on the bed. Oh boy. Meager as it was, the starlight peeping in through the skylight calmed him.
これなら。
Yeah, this'll work. Exhaling slowly, he laid down. For the time being, he had the essentials he needed to live, and his bed was many times softer than it appeared. Thinking his worries seemed smaller than they were, he quickly drifted off to sleep. That was the story from when he opened his eyes to when he fell asleep. Just like that, the short night following the long night was over. For one thing was true. Sojiro was an optimist to a fault, but it wasn't the end of the world. Now, let us rewind 5 hours prior to this glutton for punishment going to bed. I imagine this is what's up with the fog. It was 7 o'clock in the evening, just after the unproductive discussion between the two mages and the boy had ended. Leaving her roommate and the intruder in the drawing room, the girl walked alone through the foyer. From there, she headed to the West Wing. These were Alice Kuwanji's personal chambers, in which even her roommate, Aoko Aozaki, seldom dared to even step foot. The foyer was illuminated only by pale moonlight. Hard footsteps echoed through the dreary moonlit lobby. In such mansions in Japan, there was no custom for removing shoes at the door. Hence, Alice crossed the foyer in her boots. She only removed them when she relaxed in her bedroom. Suddenly, she remembered something from her childhood. She used to enjoy the feeling of the cold hardwood floor on her bare feet and walk around the foyer on particularly sunny days. After her father affectionately scolded her for it, she never did it again.
そうだったわね。青子は結局守らなかった。
I don't know why I bother. Aoko never does. She let out a quiet sigh. Alice's new roommate, whom she took on after coming to Japan, would not comply with her instructions.
落ち着かないものはしょうがない。
Old habits die hard, Aoko would say, changing into her slippers. Aoko might have found it natural to do so, given that she lived in a typical Japanese house through the middle school. But every time Alice heard her flip-flopping through the foyer, she wanted to cancel their cohabitation. By now, Alice is not more. Human adaptability was remarkable at times, and ungracious at others. The emotional attachments of the past had proved far too brutal under the weight of reality. A little bluebird was perched on the banister. Words. Its tiny chirping made Alice stop and look its way.
今夜は放っておくわ。今は青子の問題よ。
Leave him be for tonight. Right now, he's Aoko's problem. The lack of feeling in her voice made the bird tilt its head as it sang. Tweet, tweet, tweet. It trilled as though questioning its master's uncharacteristic leniency.
約束は約束よ。今夜ぐらいは多めに見ないと。
Interesting. A promise is a promise. At least I can tolerate him for tonight.
青子と彼はそれだけの活躍をしたのだし。
Aoko and the boy did go to such lengths, after all. she said to the bird, her voice betraying her discontent. If you win, I'll let you go. She would keep that promise in spite of the unquenchable desire to fight that burned in her chest.
でもその後の処遇は別の話。
But it didn't make any guarantees after that.
条件付きのゲームに勝ったぐらいでいつまでも得意げでいられるのは心外だわ。
She scraped a win even with a handicap in our little game, but I won't let her strut around childishly rubbing it in my face forever. Perhaps it was perfectionism born of fastidiousness, but despite her prim demeanor, Alice Kawanji was a sore loser. It didn't matter to her whose magecraft was superior. Losing the game had proven hard to move on from. The little bird fluttered its wings in agreement. Drinking in Alice's contempt, it was itching to dive bomb the invader. It looked like a soldier saluting a superior officer as it preened itself. The bluebird turned to face its master. Tweet, 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 tweet. Its light-hearted tweeting seemed to display a desire to deal with Sojiro first thing in the morning.
そうね。理由さえできたのなら瓶なり本なりに入ってもらいましょう。
Indeed, if he gives us a reason, let us put him in a bottle, or perhaps a book. Except her words lacked any bite. On the face of it, they were the chilling kind one might come to expect from a witch's lips, but then again so tame as to remind you of a certain robin's flapping.
しばらくの話よ。けどそれも一時だけ。私の我慢も長くは続かないし。
It's only a matter of time, and there's not very much of that. My patience has its limits.
だいたい青子も人にかまけていられる立場じゃないわ。5日もすれば思い知るでしょう。そうすれば。
Aoko's in no position to dote on others in the first place. I give her 5 days, and then, when that time came, expelling him would be simple. Alice was well aware her roommate was a pragmatist with no vision. The situation she'd created would not allow her to wait around. She could only afford to protect that boy for 3 or 4 days at most. Beyond that, Alice sensed Aoko would crack and say something like, "You take care of this, Alice."
それまで待つか。あるいは私の我慢が効かなくなるか。
Will I wait until then, or will I lose my patience first?
どちらにしても結果は変わらないわ。
Whichever comes first, the end result will be the same. Alice Kawanji would suffer no more irritations. And protecting a witness, let alone allowing them to live in her mansion, was an indignity. Alice looked up, fascinated by the dense fog that had clawed into the foyer. Above the fireplace was a single mirror. Roughly 3 feet in diameter, it decorated the wall where one might find a painting.
鏡の機能、しばらくは制御できないみたい。
I suppose, for some reason, she recalled an earlier conversation.
これでも一番無難だと思う。
How about now? Still think this is the safest option? In response to her question, the boy inside the bottle shrugged his shoulders and answered. From his perspective, the city and the mansion were no different. It seemed that, having just moved from the countryside, everything was something he'd never seen before.
自慢できることじゃないが、まだ書き物さえ満足にできないし、都会のルールは複雑すぎて、何が正しいのかさえ区別がつかない。
I'm not proud of it, but I still have trouble writing, and the city's rules are so complicated that I don't even know right from wrong. More than embarrassment, his voice was full of resentment. He was angry about something, though Alice couldn't tell what. But
だから、どこにいても危ないことに変わりはないんだ。
that's why no matter where I go, I'm always in danger.
極端な話、道を歩くだけでも、人と話すだけでも不安になる。俺は、どこでだろうとうまくやっていける保証はないんだよ。
It might be an exaggeration, but even walking down the street or talking to someone makes me anxious. No matter where I am, there's no guarantee I'll make it out.
けど、ここにはそんな奴に気を使ってくれる人がいる。気遣ってくれる理由は物騒なものっぽいけど、それは本当に贅沢なことだと思うんだ。
But here, there's someone that might show concern for a person like me. Sure, my reasoning's a little messed up, but I've never known such a luxury. Her eyes welled up ever so slightly. The soft words were something she could not brush off, because they made sense to her. Given that everything in the city was a danger to him, nothing had changed after coming to the mansion. In reality, he had no reason to fear this place in particular. If anything was different from the outside, it would be that someone here was an ally. With that view, he had been entirely sincere. His explanation hadn't contained any flattery towards Alice Kawanji, nor pandering to Aoko Aozaki. He was simply speaking from the heart. I like it here.
今鏡に迷い込まれるのは迷惑ね。
Perhaps having him wander into the mirror is more trouble than it's worth right now.
鏡の機能は侵入者の探索に専念させたいし、彼が迷い込みそうになったら止めてあげて。
I want to dedicate the mirror's function to searching for intruders, so if it looks like he's going to be swallowed up by it, do stop him, will you? The bird shook its feathers at her strange instruction. Alice looked away from the mirror and continued her walk. The bird chirped in protest.
あなたの仕事よ、ロビン。それぐらいの役には立って。
It is your job, Robin. At least get that right, would you? Leaving the bird with that icy retort, she vanished into the west wing. Robin, offended, stood there. All that remained was the moonlight. And the little blue bird, trembling at a perilous prospect of unprecedented change. Nice. Are you for real? Save that in here. I don't know. I love how many save slots I get. Means I can pull my bullshit wherever. Alright. Next. It's only been like 30 minutes. We can keep going. Once, long ago, I saw a beautiful bird fly overhead. Round and round it circled the distant blue sky. How high it flew in this era when humans, not birds, reigned supreme. And yet the bird was completely uninterested. In humanity's endless desire for expansion, our creation of even higher homes, or the smoke bellowing from industry's chimneys, the sky extends further than the eye can see. It belongs to no one. Not now, not then. The bird was truly a noble creature, flapping its wings powerfully across the wild ancient sky. Until the sudden sound of cold iron. A wing is shot, its symmetry gone forever. cruel and tragic. Its body plummets downwards. Not knowing its fate, the bird frantically beats its wings to the very end. One moment soaring with eyes to the sky, the next crashing down to the dry, hardened earth. This was the dream I saw. No matter how much I thought about it, its details remained clouded. What did that bird look like, for instance? Was it a bluebird? Are you for real?
はい、今日の授業はここまで。
Alright, class dismissed.
試験範囲の総まとめなんかやっちゃいましたけど、これうちのクラスだけですから、よそのクラスには内密にお願いしますね。担任特権と思ってください。
That's everything that'll be on the test. Please don't share it with the other classes. You're the only ones I'm telling. Think of this as a homeroom bonus.
ほら、原告の平均点ぐらいは学年一番にしておくと、皆さんも鼻が高いと思いまして。
Remember, if this class gets the highest scores, you can brag about it to all the other classes. Mr. Yamashiro chuckled as he finished. Yamashiro. This was typical of the kind of teacher responsible for Year 2 Class C, the master at relaxing his pupils.
先生、口元に本音出てる。鼻を高くしたいのは私たちじゃないですよね。
I think you got that backwards, Mr. Yamashiro. You're the one who's got after bragging rights.
鼻っていうかメンツですよね。先生、里中先生に嫌味言われてばっかりだし。
Yeah, then he can finally get Mr. Sakanada off his back. We know he's been making fun of you all semester for our bad grades, sir.
つうかはっきり言えばいいんすよ。お前ら頭悪すぎだって。いやまあ、うちのクラス見事なまでに体育会系ばっかりだけどさ。
Ooh, we're like total washouts, except for our totally excellent sports skills.
いえいえ、テストの点数だけが学生生活ではありませんから、僕から言うべきことは何も。
Please, though it might not mean much coming from me, high school is much more about much more than just your test scores.
先生方もそこまで目くじら立ててるわけじゃないので、別にクラス全員が赤点でも僕の人生には何ら関わりはないんですけどね。
Teachers don't really care that much about your grades, you know? Even if you all fail, it's not like anything bad will happen to us.
しかし一方では一人厄介な御人がおりまして。
But there is one student who does bother me. Hold on, this has been bothering me. Is this like, what is that? Because my mind immediately thinks like coffee machine, but that's obviously not what that is. Is that like, are they keys to something? What is that? Damn it.
皆さんが選んだ全校生徒代表の方なんですが、これが恐ろしいのなんの。
I think you know who I'm talking about. You chose her to represent the entire student body. A monumentally awful decision.
テストの点数が低いのは生徒ではなく教育する側が無能だからです。教育委員会への報告準備はいつでもできていますので。と、日夜脅してくるんですよ。
He makes a daily point to threaten to report me to the Board of Education, claiming my students' grades are the result of poor instruction rather than lack of studying.
それでも生徒たちが治らないようなら、その時は直接私が監督します。とか、生徒としてどうなんですかね、あれ。
She says if the students' scores don't improve, she'd come to supervise my classes herself. What kind of student even says such a thing? The warm atmosphere of the room suddenly fell below freezing. The students of Class C now knew who their true enemy was.
ああ、そっか。山城先生生徒会の顧問だったっけ。ナムナム。
I forgot Mr. Yamashiro was the student body advisor.
さすがは応援団を立ち直らせた上傑。教師一人退職に追い込むなど造作もね。
The student president managed to revive the cheer squad, so I wouldn't really be surprised if she managed to force a teacher out of their job too.
やっぱりな。
会長絶対年サバ読んでるって。あの迫力、同年代と思えねえし。
Oh, I know him. What's the voice I was thinking about him in my mind. Yeah, I heard she can guess teachers' ages with 100% accuracy. Can't believe she's the same age as us.
ほら、うちの女子と比べると特に、こう、おっぱい的に。
I mean, look at her compared to the girls in our classes. Her boobs are way bigger.
先生、木の実だけでも A 組に引き取ってもらえませんか？そりゃ男子はみんな猿ですけど、こいつだけレベルの違う猿ですよ、絶対。
Oh my god. Please get Kinomi moved to Class A, sir. It's hard enough with a class full of apes, but he's such a pig.
あれでも女子 A 組だけどあんまり成績良くねえよな。中の上ぐらいじゃなかったっけ？
Do you know, that girl doesn't even get the grades for a Class A member. Kind of middle of the pack, right?
そうだけど別にいいんじゃない？塾も行ってないし、生徒会仕切ってたまにバイトまでしてるんだから。あれで学年トップだったら逆に気持ち悪すぎ。
That's the point, dumbass. She doesn't need to go to cram school. She's one of the student council. And sometimes she does a job or two. Keen said she got awesome grades too.
だよな。周囲は副会長に任せとけばいいんだよ。
Totally. We should leave the good grades to the vice president.
まあまあ皆さん、噂話はそのあたりで。地獄耳という言葉もありますから。
Alright, that's enough gossiping, everyone. It's not nice to talk about people behind their backs.
じゃあ、それなりに復習をよろしく。あんまり点数が悪いと、冬休みそのものがなくなりますからね。
In any case, good luck with your studies. Remember, if your grades don't improve, then if your grades don't improve, then winter vacation gets cancelled.
あ、それとしずきくん、ちょっといいですか？
Oh, and Suzuki, could I have a word with you before you go? Mr. Yamashiro gathered his things and beckoned for Sojiro to join him in the hallway. There were no other students to be seen despite it being break time between classes. Voices were audible in the distance, but the hall itself felt strangely quiet and calm. Perhaps it was due to the sense of confinement created by the lack of windows. Usually students spend their breaks either in their classrooms or in the veranda.
何ですか、山城先生。
What is it, sir?
いえ、そう大した用事じゃないんですけどね。
Oh, nothing major.
試験前にこんな話をするのもデリカシーがないんですが、気になったので。どうだろう。
So,
学校には慣れたかな。
sorry to bring this up right before exams, but I've been meaning to ask. How's everything going with school? You settling in all right? I'm being held captive, sir. Though his level of concern from a teacher startled him, Sojiro felt reassured. It was only natural. After having to deal with such difficult personalities lately, Mr. Yamashiro's trivial questions were refreshing.
はい。学校の作りや決まりなら自分なりに分かってきました。友達も増えましたし。
Yes, I think I understand the basics of school life now. And I've made some friends too.
そっか、それはよかった。うちのクラスは口の悪い面々だけど、その分気を使わなくていいからね。しずきくんと相性が良くて助かったよ。
Good. Glad to hear it. Students in my class tend to mouth off, so don't take them too seriously. I'm glad you're able to fit in. Sojiro's eyes shone brightly in appreciation. In Aoko's words, Mr. Yamashiro was a brutish, forgettable, downright detestable man who didn't even deserve the title of teacher. Sojiro found him considerate in his own way.
アルバイトもほどほどにね。試験前だって言えば、大抵のところは休ませてくれるから、あまり無理はしないように。
Take it easy with your part-time jobs. We give students a lot of time off before exams, but don't push yourself too hard.
また、試験で困ったことがあったら、周りに相談しなさい。一人で悩んでいても時間の無駄だよ。ほら、学校っていうのは話し相手にだけは困らないから。
If you have trouble with exams, just ask the other students for help. There's no need to suffer in silence. If the school has anything, there's plenty of people to talk to. With a wave of his hand, Mr. Yamashiro was gone. The pure-hearted Sojiro gave him a solemn nod as if to say he accepted the advice of his so-called forgettable teacher and went back to his classroom. And then... Come again? You want my advice about girls? Sojiro had not wasted a moment in putting Mr. Yamashiro's advice into practice.
そうらしい。難問にぶち当たっているんだ。
Yeah, it's like I hit a wall with them.
深く考えてみて気づいたんだが、どうも自分は発想が貧困らしい。
I thought about it, and thought about it, and thought about it. I realized I'm no good at figuring them out. Sojiro averted his eyes out of shame over his lack of insight.
いや、豊かだと思ってたことがびっくりなんだけど。まあいい、こっち来い。
Could have fooled me. Thought you were a man with the ladies. Well, he came to the right guy. Here, follow me, follow me. Shocked as he was, Kinomi grabbed Sojiro by the shoulder and pulled him over to the wall. I know what your future looks like, Kinomi. Kinomi nearly burst out laughing when Sojiro, with a straight face, admitted his difficulty with girls. But he realized it was the first time Sojiro ever turned to him for advice. Sojiro was always able to break down any task at his part-time jobs into bite-sized pieces, but he was clearly struggling with a different problem now. This was going to take some serious effort.
で、なんかやっちまったのか？いや。
Okay, give it to me straight, pal. How big did you screw up?
これからやるのかもしれない。
Well, I haven't screwed up yet, but it might happen soon.
木の実、例えばの話、マッドベアにハリセンボンみたいな女の子が入ってきたとする。
Okay, Kinomi. Let's say a girl walked into the Mad Bear, quickly as a porcupine.
その子は俺が嫌いで、マッドベアから出て行ってほしいようなんだけど、俺はマッドベアを辞めるわけにはいかない。
She don't like me and wants me to leave, but I don't want to. Sojiro explained that he couldn't just quit his part-time job at the restaurant. He needed the money. Kinomi grunted a few times to indicate that he was still following.
つまりその女を追い出したいと。
So, like, you want the girl to split?
逆だ。なんとか認めてもらいたい。
No. I just want her to be okay with me working there.
隠していたけど、俺はその女の子が嫌いというわけじゃなくて。
Because, you know, the thing is, I sort of don't not like her. Sojiro furrowed his brow. Kinomi couldn't help but laugh at his friend's lack of manly resolve in his answer. Girls were the one area where Hosuke's skills and experience were triple those of Sojiro. Now I see.
なんだよ。要はナンパかよ。むしろ仲良くなりたいってわけ？
That's just the art of flirting, man. You want to get along with her, right? Sojiro wasn't sure how to respond. He nodded slowly without really understanding the implication of what Kinomi had said.
けど、どうすればいいのかわからない。そもそもどうやって同い年の女の子と仲良く話ができるんだ？
I don't know what to do. How can I get along with girls my age?
クラスの女どもとは話してんじゃん。あれでいいんだっつの。俺は羨ましいっつの。
Laughing. You can't hear because the gate cuts it off, and I'm laughing back. You talk to girls in our class all the time. Why doesn't he make all the other guys look bad? You're a natural at it.
持ち前の天然系で押してけばいいべ。
Just keep being your usual clueless self. I'm sure you'll be fine.
山育ちってのは希少なアイデンティティだと思うぜ。珍しいものは生かさないとさ。
Being raised in the mountains makes you Mr. Mysterious. You gotta use that unique identity to your advantage.
そうかな。珍しいというのはあんまりいいことじゃない気がする。
Really? I don't think being unusual is such a good thing, though.
だいたいそもそも嫌われている場合はどうすればいいんだ？クラスのみんなは親切だけど、相手はハリセンボンだ。いや、この際ハリネズミでもいい。
Like, how do you talk to someone who hates your guts? People in class are nice, but I'm dealing with a thorny beast here. Or maybe a hedgehog is a better metaphor.
そういう場合はめげなきゃいいんだよ。相手が折れるのを待つって寸法だな。トゲだけに。
Don't be a chicken, man. You know what they say. Tiny thorn can stop a lion. She'll come around. Sojiro's brow sunk deeper still.
この例え話はダメだ。
All these abstract metaphors are too much for me. He needed more concrete material to work with.
バッカ。女なんてのは機嫌を取ってればいいんだよ。
Come on, dude. You have to put in the work to get on a girl's good side.
まずは女の趣味とか大事にしてるもんとか聞いて、そこをフォローすればいい。自分の都合より相手の都合だ。まずは外堀から攻めろってことだな。
First, ask her about her hobbies and stuff she likes, then go from there. Think about what she wants, not what you want. You gotta blitz them from where they're weak, as they say.
外堀、外回りか。
You mean, don't be so direct?
もち。その後は、まあ、結局はこれが一番効果的なんだけどな。袖の下ってやつ？プレゼントで連れ。
Now you're getting it. And then comes the most important part, bribery. You gotta shower her with presents.
その時の需要と供給さえ合えば、嫌われてても受け取ってもらえる。受け取らせちまえば、あとはそれが義理になるってもんだ。
Supply matches the demand, she'll accept your gift even if she doesn't like you. Then you got her. She'll feel like she owes you one. Kinoe then proclaimed with an odd sense of pride that this approach has resulted only in failure for him.
けど問題がある木の実。
There is just one problem, Kinomi.
確かにご飯とかそういうのをおごってもらうと嬉しい。けど
I understand that girls like being taken out to dinner, but
そんな金はないってんだろ。わかってるわかってる。
you can't afford it. I know, I hear you, I gotcha.
仕方ないね。そういうしずきくんのために一丁割のいいバイトを紹介してやろうじゃねえのよ。
I got you covered. I'll let you on a sweet little secret. Easy way to get you some cold, hard dough. Oh, he's got the dumb smile on. Okay, there. It slid from the side of the classroom deeper into one corner. And to the front of the lockers, where no one ever stayed for too long. It would be days before Shojiro realized the suggestion he was receiving was that of the illegitimate kind, the kind he should not have shared with anyone. Are it drugs? Is he pimping himself out? I heard some things about how he operates. That night, dinner at the mansion was a feast of bread. Bread man. Ooh. Soft slices lay stacked at the center of the table, surrounded by variously colored jams. In a bowl was salad, mainly lettuce, with a small plate of unevenly cut ham. Sojiro may have had no frame of reference for what an average family dinner should be, but he could tell that this was most certainly not normal. In truth, it was a first-rate case of laziness.
チョコのペースト切れたままじゃん。
We're out of chocolate spread.
アリス、新しいの買っておいてって言わなかった？
Didn't I tell you to buy some more, Alice?
今日は一日部屋にこもっていたから。
I've been locked away in my room all day.
第一、チョコレートを食べるのはあなただけよ。自分のものは自分で調達をするべきね。
And more importantly, you're the only one that eats the stuff. So it should be your responsibility to buy it. For these two girls, however, this dinner seemed to be completely normal. Can you cook, Sojiro? They had a system of irregularly taking turns being in charge of meals, and tonight was Alice's turn. Normally, she would spend as little time and effort as possible, only truly applying herself when there was something to celebrate. Of course, Sojiro was none the wiser to Alice's unique approach to food prep. For him, it was a plain, lackluster meal. And when it came to dinner, not saying anything to each other was another staple of their meals. The sounds of cutlery, the scraping of chairs, and the tick-tock of the clock were the only things to be heard in the sunroom. Sojiro himself had already eaten. At this moment, he was watching the goings-on from the drawing room.
Sojiro, 9時からアルバイトでしょ？行ってらっしゃい。私たちのことは気にしないでいいから。
Your part-time job starts at 9, right, Sojiro? See you later then. Don't mind us.
ああ、じゃあ行ってくる。
Yeah, I'll be going then. Sojiro donned his coat with a goodbye nod. Oh, that looks really good on him, actually. When Sojiro glanced again at the sunroom, he momentarily locked eyes with Alice, or so he imagined. What? She had become ignoring him all day. And not just refusing to talk to him, she had avoided him so much so as to not look at him all day until this very moment. He could understand if he was annoying her as the outsider in the mansion, but he felt no animosity in her gaze just now.
今の様子を見てたのかな?
Maybe she was just glancing in the general direction of the drawing room. Sojiro looked nervously to her surroundings for a moment before heading to the foyer. Alice only let her gaze return to normal when she was completely sure he was gone.
ああ、めんどくさ。
So much drama. Aoko was appalled by Alice's brazen display. So much so her immaculate veneer of apathy crumbled.
何？献立に不満でもあるの？青子。
What's that, Aoko? Still upset over tonight's lack of chocolate?
もちろんあるけど、いつものことだし慣れてるわよ。
I would be. I'm so over expecting other people to pull their weight.
私が呆れてるのは、あんたの意地の悪さの方。
No, what I can't stand is your attitude.
徹底的に無視してるくせに、
Oh,
相手の反応を伺ってるなんてめめしくない？罠張って待ち受けるようなもんじゃない。
It's pretty sissy of you to pretend to ignore him while watching his every move. Should be any more obvious was such a cheap trap.
彼の反応なんて探ってないわ。そもそも興味がないもの。それと、今のは差別発言ね。めめしいという表現は女性軽視に過ぎるわ。
I was not watching his every move. I could care less what he does. And mind how you use the word sissy. Freaks of sexism.
今の場合なら、あなたは矛盾していると言ってちょうだい。
Next time, just say you're a hypocrite, okay?
うわ、自覚ありときた。
Well, look who suddenly found a soapbox. Choosing not to rise to her roommate's jibe, Alice resumed eating. Aoko tore off pieces of bread and ate them one by one, anger still visible on her face.
じゃあここからは、青崎青子としてじゃなく、共犯者としての質問ね。
Forget whatever issues you and me have for a moment, and take some advice from someone who knows a thing or two about messing with that boy.
アリス的に彼を見逃していいと思える判断材料はない？
I think maybe we need to cut him some slack.
ありえないけど、実は彼も魔術師でしたなんてオチであったとしても、 ここに住まわせるのは容認できない？
Hypothetically, let's say it turns out he's a mage too. Then would you be okay with him living here?
その理由なら認めるわ。彼を許すのではなく、そんなことに気づかなかった私たちへのペナルティとして。
Sure, but not for his benefit. I couldn't think of a more fitting punishment for you and I for not recognizing his ability sooner.
そうね。今のは絶対にありえない話だけど、それと同じに絶対の結論もまたないわ。
So yes, hypothetically speaking, I would. But we can burn that bridge when we come to it.
彼がここに住む選択を飲む場合すらあるかもしれない。気の迷いは私にだってあるのだし。
But until then, perhaps I should accept his presence here. Perhaps not. I reserve the right to have whims of my own.
ええ、そういうことよ。
Then we're agreed.
今は私との義理とかプライドで冷静を保ってるあんただけど、あいつの努力次第で少しは。
You can keep your chilly absence out of the duty to me or personal pride. But if you show signs of improving, then maybe.
それは諦めて。彼が何をしようと無駄だから。
Dream on. It doesn't matter what he does. He'll never change.
あなたも知っていると思うけど。
As you very well know. Alice had never been the type to let her guard down around others. The young witch despised humans, having recreated so many of their objects in fairy tales.
そんなのはあんた個人のトラウマでしょ？自分の意固地さを魔女の血統云々で棚上げするのはそれこそめめしいわ。
You can't use being a witch as an excuse for every personal issue you have. Yet another example of you being sissy, if you ask me.
いいじゃない。嫌いなら嫌いではっきりしてれば。
It's fine if you dislike him. Just come out and act like it.
私が気に食わないのはね、あんたのどっちつかずの態度よ、アリス。
Stop trying to have it both ways.
どっちつかずの態度。
And what's that supposed to mean?
そう。無視するなら徹底して無視してやれって言ってるの。
But if you want to ignore him, then ignore him for real.
ガチガチに守りを固めて、そのくせ城門だけ開けて、獲物が油断して入ってきたら串刺しにする気満々とか、相棒として見てられないわ。
There's something kind of comedy to how much, like, air there is up here. I know it's probably for the words, so that you can, like, here's the people, and then the words are up here. But there's something like, there's all this open space up here. It feels kind of like Muppets.
あいつにできることなんて、閉ざされた門を開けることぐらいだっていうのに、その機会さえなくすのはどうなの？
I forgot to read the whole line. You're fortifying the castle walls while leaving the front gate wide open, waiting for him to make the horrible mistake of exactly what you're urging him to do. Gross to watch. You don't want him to come inside, then shut the damn door already.
ごめんなさい、アオコ。もう少し簡単に言って。
I'm sorry, Aoko, you've lost me.
その例えは、ちょっと。
Please say that again in plain English. Alice seemed unable to grasp Aoko's metaphor. Meanwhile, Aoko headed up to here with her roommate's lack of self-awareness and was starting to lose her cool. I like her fucking disgust face. It's like, oh, god damn it.
だから、興味ないとか言っておきながら粉かけるなってこと。あんなにチラチラ盗み見たら、あいつ変に勘違いしちゃうかもしれないでしょ？
If you really don't care, then quit worrying so much about him. If you notice you gawking at him, you might get the wrong idea.
アリスはああ見えて、本当は自分と仲直りしたがっているに違いない。じゃあ早速部屋に押しかけてみよう。とか。
He's probably thinking, Alice looked like you wanted to patch things up. Maybe I should stop by her room. Or even worse.
そういうことになるの？
Do you really think so?
なる。少なくとも私だったらいい加減イライラして、話があるなら校舎裏まで来いって決着つけかねないレベル。この毒。
Yes. If it were me you were doing that to, I'd be dragging you out back and smacking you senseless. Itch.
そうだったのね。気をつけるわ。
Very well. I'll be more careful.
別に彼と話をする気はないんだし、私も彼を見ていたというより、彼の手足を見ていたのだし。
It's not like I want to talk to him anyway. And for the record, I didn't look at him exactly. Only his arms and legs.
手足ってなんで？
And why in the world would you look at his arms and legs?
手足は手足よ。彼個人には思うところはないけど、あの夜の出来事はまだ記憶に新しいから。
Because of what happened the other night. Though I doubt even he remembers.
それが少しだけ気になって、つい視線で追っていたのね。
I was thinking about it and just happened to glance over at his arms and legs.
あの夜って遊園地のこと？なんかしたっけあいつ。
The other night. Yeah, I guess so, the other night. You mean at the amusement park? I don't remember him doing anything particularly special. I don't know. That last thing with Humpty Dumpty was pretty unique, if you ask me. Alice's expression soured. She still felt the sting of her defeat.
飛んだでしょ、彼。
You saw the way he flew through the air, didn't you?
レールの上から私のダンプティに向かって。
Yeah, Dumpty. Off the track, straight at my Dumpty.
ええ、そんなこと言ってたわね。勢いで
Hmm.
つい1メートルぐらいだから飛んじゃったとか。
Sure, you were raving about how he flew a whole couple of feet. Aoko hadn't really seen it in person, luckily. All she knew was that the spell she had placed on Sojiro was part of the reason he survived that jump of death. Alice, on the other hand, had observed the whole scene from the clock tower. It had only lasted an instant, but it had burned itself into her mind's eye. More than when her precious moon had fallen at Aoko's hands. And Flat Snark had come tumbling down.
でも、それがどうしたの？卵の敵討ちってわけ？
So that's it? You want to get back at him for what happened to Dumpty, do you? Although she is just calling him Egg.
ダンプティは壊れるのが仕事だから、敵討ちも何もないわ。ただ、人間の体ってあんな風に動くんだなって。
Dumpty's destruction was purely business. I feel no need of retaliation. I was just intrigued to observe the movement of a human body. And it goes. For someone with as little human interaction as Alice, Sojiro's leap must have appeared quite remarkable. Particularly because his legs were orders of magnitude less capable than those of an animal in the forest. And yet, even with such feeble legs, with those meek arms of his, he managed to fly through the open air like a bird. To her, it was akin to feeling city folk get what they see. It was akin to the feeling city folk get when they see a wild creature in its natural habitat.
気にしないで。
Aiken.
機会があるならもう一度見たいと思っただけ。
So good I mentioned it. I just hope I can witness that again someday.
別に彼に何を期待しているわけじゃないわ。
And when I say human, I am not referring to him.
なるほど。アリスのプロイって大体が人型じゃないしね。単に物珍しさで見ていただけか。
I see. It was novel for you. Makes sense considering most of your employees have non-human forms. Aoka sighed and released the tension from her shoulders. She was disappointed to discover that Alice's behavior stemmed from simple curiosity, like that of a child with the new toy. And Alice was in no position to take issue with her reaction. And how could she? She wasn't entirely sure that what herself she was feeling. Rip, 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 rip.
夕食、明日は私が作るから。
I'll make dinner tomorrow.
試験前だってのに、こんなしょぼくれたもん食べさせられたら、一夜漬けする気合も湧かないわよ。
Another meal like this before exams is going to make it impossible to study.
ご自由に。私も手が空いて助かるわ。
No complaints for me. I certainly wouldn't mind the free time. Night came and went in the mansion. For better or worse, the disturbance caused by the foreign invader had not yet caused the kettle to boil over. The next morning at 6:30, as sunlight spread out across the sky, Sojiro walked to school with Aoko in the chilly morning air.
いい？洋館にいるときは、極力一人にならないこと。
So, try not to ever be alone in the house, okay? It was her intention to keep Sojiro safe until he left the mansion. Nonetheless,
眠い。6時から登校とか、あんたも働き者ね。
I'm so sleepy. What's the deal with going to school so early?
そうでもないよ。30分仕出しを手伝うだけだし。
そうでもないよ。Interesting. そうでもないよ。そうでもないよ。I'm not. I have to pull a 30-minute shift helping with. What a weird. I was just thinking about this when there last night he was like, "Oh yeah, my shift starts at 9," but she was like, "You have to be back by 10." Does that mean he's only working an hour? What are shifts like in Japan? That's amazing. Well, maybe not exactly. We'll see. Well, maybe I won't. Anyway, I'm not. I have to pull a 30-minute shift helping with deliveries. His work ethic was a little too strong for a student entering finals.
それより青崎、無理してないか？別にこっちに付き合うことないんだぞ。
You sure you're not pushing yourself too hard, Ozaki? You don't really need to keep tabs on me, you know?
ご心配なく。生徒会室で仮眠取るから。約束だし、門までは一緒に行くわよ。
Oh, don't worry. I'll catch up on some sleep in the student council room when you're done. I promised I'd walk you as far as the front gate, and I plan to stick to it. But internally, Aoko was worried. What traps did her roommate have in store for him? She couldn't imagine Alice had planned anything to go down the woods, but she wanted to be safer than worry. Sorry. She was firmly committed. At least, the least she could do was accompany Sojiro to school. That much she was firmly committed to. Any traps that presented themselves could be dealt with on the spot. Well, not dealt with so much as destroyed, since that was Ako's forte. But that would be enough to keep him safe for the time being.
帰り道に関しては、アリスもそこまで暇ではないと信じるしかないんだけど。
As for when you get out of school, all we can do is hope that Alice is short on free time today. Alright. If Alice is willing to put all her energy into a new trap after the first had failed, then they were as good as dead anyway. But Aoko would cross that road when she came to it. It all depended on how deep Alice's dislike of Sojiro really went. It would have to be enough to make her abandon her pride as a witch, something she had protected fervently until now. If that were the case, Aoko knew she would never be able to keep him safe. The moment 24/7 protection became necessary was the moment she had failed. Her character led her to focus on what she could do in the here and now and ignore the rest. And this current plan of hers was her best attempt at doing right by everyone. They left behind the Kuwanji estate, and the two remained together until the residential area at the bottom of the hill, where Aoko glanced casually at Sojiro.
ところで、何か考えてる？
So, any thoughts? Surprisingly, Sojiro saw through her harmless question and sensed the bigger issue. How was he going to win Alice over? In fact, he had been thinking about that very question. According to his friend, there were 3 basic approaches he could take. One was the roundabout approach.
こいつは時間がかかるが最も自然だ。
This way takes the longest, but it's the most natural.
人間ってのは自分が好きなものを大切にされるとコロッと気を許しちまう。仲間意識ってやつだな。
Humans love it when you pay attention to the things they like, such as things like friends do. In other words, instead of focusing on the person one wishes to win over, one should focus on their interests. It was a surprisingly mature opinion coming from Kinomi. Unfortunately, Sojiro had no idea what sort of things Alice liked. She seemed very fond of the mansion, but what could he do? Clean it for her? He sensed that would have the reverse effect. He had the distinct feeling she would not want him touching what was precious to her. The second approach was to take the inner track.
でもやっぱり本人を落とすのが一番早い。俺たちに魅力がないのなら、魅力のある外付け装備に頼るのだ。
The fastest way to get someone to fall for you. When you can't coast on your natural good looks and charm, that's what your wallet's for.
そう、プレゼントなんだよ、しずきくん。
You know what I'm talking about. Gifts, man. A quick and dirty strategy. The assassin's strike. Manipulate someone's feelings with an expensive gift. However, Alice is a caster, and therefore strong against assassins. To Sojiro, that sounded like the best chance. This approach was easy for him to grasp, and he appreciated its simplicity. However, he had the same concerns as with the first approach. A step was missing, and without this step, the plan was bound to fail.
あとは、まあ、剣ってやつ？俺にはよくわかんないけどさ、やりすぎると悪い印象を持たれるとか殿下が言ってたな。
The only other option is, I guess you can call it wait and see. I don't fully understand it myself, but they say if you try too hard, your plan's bound to backfire.
私、今落とされてるって意識させちゃダメなんだとよ。付き合った後で、あれ私落とされたと気づかせるのが上等なんだとか。
Like, you don't ever want the girl to suddenly pivot and be, oh, now I love him. It's better that it dawns on her after you've hung out together after a while, like, wait, I think I like him. Though Sojiro didn't quite grasp the details, he understood the basic idea. Don't press your luck. He knew that much was good advice. He would have to try extremely hard to get on Alice's good side. And he could tell that it would be a long process to get there. Sojiro recalled the time he was wandered to a fox's territory in the mountains. He left some food on the ground for the fox, and then it never bothered him again. What is considered goodwill and kindness varies from person to person. But if there's enough goodwill from one side, regardless of whether that goodwill is reciprocated, the other side eventually start to feel the obligation to do so. That was the key.
大丈夫。考えてるよ。とりあえず自分にできることとか、したいことをしようと思う。
It's okay. I'll think of something. For now, I can only do what I can do.
安心してくれ。青崎に忠告されたことすらきちんと守る方針だ。
Don't worry. I've taken your counsel to heart, Aozaki. It's also working on someone else. Sojiro seemed ready to face things head on. His answer did little to reassure Aoko. However, she found herself more concerned about his safety than ever before. Maybe I'm reading into it. Still.
学校にあるようなほうきが欲しい。
You're looking for a broom like the ones at school? Oh, who's this?
そうなんだ。できれば安く買えるところ。
Yeah, the cheaper the better.
しずきの家、アパートよね。ほうきなんてもの必要とは思えないけど。
Don't you live in an apartment? Who needs a broom in an apartment?
いや、ちょっと気になるところがあって掃除がしたいんだ。ゴミ袋もあると助かる。
Well, you know, I've been wanting to clean things up a little. I could use some trash bags, too.
無駄な出費はできないって言ってたくせに。
Aren't you supposed to be broke or something?
まあどうでもいいけど、うちのでよければ使う？貸してあげましょうか？
Whatever. Want to use my broom then? I'll lend it to you if you want.
多分1日じゃ終わらないから自分で買うよ。
He's got the expression on. That alone will work on me. You'd be like, oh, wow, hey. Actually, I need it longer than one day. So maybe it's best I buy my own?
元から欲しかったものだし、あると便利だよ、ホキ。
I mean, I always wanted my own broom. Brooms are nice to have around, you know? Sojiro was on his way home from his part-time after school. It was 4 in the afternoon, 2 hours earlier than his part-time would have normally ended. The Mad Bear's head chef had gotten in trouble when the accountant for making a student work the day before exams. Thus, Sojiro's boss had tearfully sent him home early. And that's when it happened. The interruption to his standard schedule must have been just the shock he needed. Normally, he would meet up with Aoko after she was done with student council affairs to go home with her. However, today Sojiro was asking the other students who worked at the same place if they knew any shops in the area where he could buy a broom.
田舎者の趣味って理解不能ね。推強すぎ。
God, what's wrong with you? People from the countryside are like so weird.
うちの近くにまっついラーメン屋あるでしょ。あそこの通りを終わりまで行けば、起きたって金物店がある。
Anyway, you know that nasty ramen place near school? Just go to the end of that street and there's a hardware store called Okita.
一式揃えるなら西口のホームセンターより安く上がるわ。
It's way cheaper than the home supply store at the west of the station, as long as they have what you want anyway.
どうでもいいけど、私のチャリ使う？どうせ試験明けまで使わないし。
Use my bicycle if you want. I don't care. I won't eat until exams are over anyway. Sojiro's eyes lit up as if he met his savior, but biking uphill to the mansion, let alone with a package to carry, wasn't a pretty thought.
いや、自転車には乗ってみたいけど、今回は遠慮するよ。じゃあ、また明日、学校で。
I appreciate the offer, but I think I'll pass. See you at school tomorrow. Saying farewell to his coworkers, he headed to the hardware store. He needed a cheap and sturdy bamboo broom and a large dustpan to go with it. If possible, a pushcart and a stick for a splint would have been nice too. As it happened, Sojiro wanted quite a few things. Alice returned to her work after waking from her nap. The Kuanji estate had an annex that housed a library. The library was filled with books handed down to her from her mother, so it was Alice's territory, such that even Aoko dared not enter. Yet the mansion was a witch's abode left behind by the times. Then the library was a fairy tale quarters, lost to the ages. It was a natural sanctuary for the young witch who could command ploys to do her bidding. She relied on her memory to recall the location of each book on the many shelves. And then she saw it. Upon raising her head, she was met with the most unusual of sights. Her elegant eyebrows bristled in distaste. From that moment on, she failed to accomplish anything she had planned for that day. She was instead forced to stare at the strange sight outside her window, eyebrows fixed on that position until the sun set. Ah well. Moving into the Grand Mansion at the Hell had not brought any major changes to Sojiro's day-to-day. He woke up, went to his part-time, ate breakfast, and went to school. Classes came and went, still strange and new, broken up by rare and brief moments of rest until the school day ended. He left school, went to his part time, slept, woke up, and studied for exams. Is this like a nap sleep or like what? Interesting. A modest life for a modest young man, continuing every day in the same fashion despite his best efforts to change his fortune. But nothing ever really changes. Whether Aoko is by his side in the mansion, as was frequently the case, or whether Alice is making him drink some potion she prepared before going to bed. The former was an attempt by Aoko to make him feel better. The latter was some attempt to keep him safe, even if he didn't fully appreciate it. Then one day, a day like any other, while Sojiro was pouring himself some tea, as he worried over the lack of change in his life. Oh, by the way, his relationship with Alice was the same as ever, but there was one major change this morning. He was drinking black tea instead of green. Though there were all sorts of different types of tea to be found in the kitchen, a newcomer to the world of tea like Sojiro could not tell one of them from the next. Naturally, his tea-making skills were limited to tea bags, one of which he placed in his cup before returning to the dining table. Alice and Aoko were already seated. The two were eating in silence. In this household, it was everyone for themselves when it came to breakfast. The diplomatic description of their breakfasts would be simple. The more accurate description would be 2 slices of stale bread prepared in seconds. Aoko exchanged a word or two with Alice, took a sip of tea, and stood up from her seat. Since it was winter break for the high schooler, Alice, she returned to her room after eating as she normally did. Aoko headed to the front doors, shoes in hand, ready for school. Isn't she supposed to be wearing like stockings or something? Whatever. After hurriedly cleaning the table, Sojiro rushed out the door after her. Together they walked down the long hill in the direction of school. They had spent 3 days following this very simple routine. So, any word on you-know-who? School had ended and everything had arrived. Evening had arrived. Buttered bread roll in one hand, Alice replied with a simple, silent shake of her head.
そうならあっちも次の手を考えているんでしょうね。魔術師本体の居場所は見当ついてる？
Thought so. The enemy must be considering the next move too. Haven't figured out where the mage is? Oh, that's a new outfit. Or at least she's wearing like pearls with it, or some kind of stones. Her response was exactly the same. Without showing the slightest bit of without showing the slightest sign of dejection, she continued to chew the roll and took a stab at her salad.
そう。私も試験が終わったら手伝うから、それまで悪いけど一人でやってて。今日からあのバカを一夜漬けにしなくちゃいけないんで、余裕ないの。
Okay then, I'll help you once the exams are over, if you can manage on your own. Till then, I have to help that idiot study, so my schedule's pretty warped. Alice's face grew dour as if she had something to get off her chest.
問題ないでしょ？アリスはもう休みに入ってるんだから、一日全部使えるじゃない。
Don't give me that look. You're on winter break. You can spend all day working on it, can't you? Alice was indeed on vacation and could spend all day every day on her work as a mage. Yet she had spent the past few days holed up in the library instead. She was hardly devoting herself to dealing with the challenger, as Aoko put it.
アリス？聞いてる？
Alice, are you listening?
わかってる。今夜からそっちもやるから。
Yes, I'll get to work on it tonight. It's a much better second outfit. Sighing, she stood up. What was bothering Alice and what was bothering Alice? And what was it she wanted to say? What had she been doing only 2 hours earlier? The young witch took her leave from the breakfast table without offering a single clue. Misaki High was a private school, and as such, its winter break started earlier than public schools. The end of term ceremony was in mid-December, followed by a brief respite before the next term began. Of course. That was if, and only if, they overcame the classic obstacle lying between them and an extended break from school. Final exams. The radio continued its broadcast late into the night. A thermos of hot tea eliminated the need to venture down to the kitchen. An electric blanket kept away the winter cold, and a crab-shaped pastry staved off any dinner-time hunger. These were the lengths Aoko had gone to. She needed to ensure that every aspect of her surroundings helped her pull a successful all-nighter.
期末試験1日目ご苦労様。
Congrats on surviving the first day of
それ
exams.
で生まれ変わる覚悟できた？
Are you ready to leave your old study habits behind and be reborn as a new student? Mm-hmm. Sojiro nodded earnestly. Upon returning from work, he encountered not the maid she expected, but the Demon Student Council's president, Aozaki. Half a day earlier, the first day of exams are over, and Sojiro was about to head back to the mansion, where he hoped to put his plan into practice, when...
今夜私の部屋で監禁ね。
Tonight, I'm holding you prisoner.
夕方からのアルバイトは当然キャンセル。ちょっと本気であの点数はありえないから。
Your grades are simply unacceptable. Cancel your shift and any other plans you have. A cold blue grin greeted him in the hallway. Clenched in her fist was Sojiro's exam paper. Mr. Yamashiro had no doubt said,
転校してきたばかりだし、しょうがないよね。
He only just transferred. We can't expect miracles. But she'd snatched the exam out of the teacher's hands the minute he tried to show her. That was how Sojiro ended up in Aoko's room, instead of the room of the attic to which he was accustomed. Though her situation was far from normal, at the end of the day, she was an adolescent girl like any other. Naturally, she felt uncomfortable letting a boy in her own age into her room. However, his grades were truly something to be called for desperate measures. That explained why her mood was even worse than normal today, and the vein on her forehead visibly pulsing with anger.
先に自分の復習済ませる。
I need to finish my own studies first.
あんたはそのテーブル使ってて。
You can use this table in that meantime. Aoko turned her back to him and sat down at her favorite desk. Sojiro was left standing before her cheap-looking glass table.
なんかいろいろと慣れないな。
I'm still really not used to all this.
なあ、青崎。この青いのなんだ？
Hey, Ozaki, what's that blue thing over there? Restless, Sojiro found his eyes drawn to the guitar propped up in the corner.
なんか薄いし青いし、とんがってるし。きっと青崎のことだし。
It's thin, blue, and intense looking. It's got your name written all over it.
もしかしなくても武器か。
Don't tell me this is some kind of weapon. What is it? 6 strings? Yeah, it's guitar. 3 pedals. It's got a little whammy bar. That's fun.
楽器よそれ。エレキはともかく、アコギは音楽室で似たようなのあったでしょ？あとこれ以上青々言ったら、そのとんがってるので殴るからね。
It's a musical instrument. I understand if you've never seen an electric one, but you must have seen an acoustic in the music room. Keep talking though, and you'll soon see it also works as a weapon. Sojiro plopped himself down into a cushion, struggling to suppress his desire to retort that it was a weapon after all. Sure is heavy like one. Have you ever felt an electric guitar? That has to weigh like 25 pounds easy.
ちょっと落ち着きなさいよ。いつもは耳の遠い大型犬みたいに鈍感なくせに。何か気になるものでもあるの？
Don't play the victim. Usually you're as oblivious as a blind, deaf, and dumb dog. What's got you worked up this time? In fact, it was Aoko who was oblivious for once. For his part, Sojiro could not figure out why he felt so restless either. Suffice it to say, they were both pretty clueless in this moment.
もしかして内装？この部屋の家具のグレードが今とは違うから不思議がってるのね。
It is a little more modern. Although they're in what, like 1970s or something? I don't know. Is it the way I decorated my room? My furniture is totally different to the stuff in the drawing room, so I understand if it seems a little weird.
ここベッド以外は私の家から持ち込んだものなの。引っ越してから2年経つけど、まだ屋敷には馴染んでないでしょ。
I bought everything from home except for the bed. It's been 2 years since I moved here, but it still don't feel like me and my stuff belong in this big old house. Though she misunderstood the real reason for Sojiro's nervousness, Aoko seemed satisfied that she had resolved Sojiro's anxiety for the time being and returned to her studies. She flipped through her notes and textbooks as fast as if fast-forwarding a tape. There was no opening for an outsider like him to intrude on her high-speed study session. Repelled by her intensity, he retreated to his table. He was at least sensitive enough to pick up on her desire to be left alone. It was a testament to Sojiro that having his needs utterly ignored was now second nature to him, to the extent that he could now happily go about his business in solitude. Two hours passed. Then, as the clock neared 11, Aoko's speed and concentration began to slip. Seeing his window of opportunity, Sojiro seized the moment to strike up a conversation.
青崎、ちょっといいかな。
Hey, Ozaki, can I talk to you for a moment?
何？
Yeah, what's up? She spoke hesitantly, not bothering to turn to face him. She continued to flip the pages in her textbook, albeit at a slower speed than before.
この3日間、青崎たちの夕食事情を見てきたけど、
I noticed how you and Allison have been acting at dinner these past 3 days, and,
君たちの食事はいつもああなのか？
is it always like that?
そうだけど、おかしい？
Yeah, it's normal. Do we not look normal?
そう言われると困るな。
I don't think I know how to answer that.
ただ、学校じゃみんな楽しそうだった。誰かと食事をとるってことは、ああいう風になることだって思ってた。だから、もしかすると。
It's just, at school, people seem to enjoy eating together, so I thought it was strange that the two of you didn't look like you enjoyed it. And I thought maybe it's because of, you know.
もしかしないわよ。別にあんたのせいでアリスと話さないわけじゃないわ。私たちはいつもああだから。
Don't worry, it's not because of you that we haven't been talking at meal times. We never really talked much to each other during meals. Aoko spoke calmly with her back still turned, seemingly unaware of what he was getting at.
張り詰めた食卓だな。
Well, can get pretty tense.
青崎とアリスは仲がいいと思ってたのに。
Here I thought you two were pretty close. She neither confirmed nor denied the statement. She was, however, surprised by the disappointed tone by which he had made it.
張り詰めた食卓っていうのは合ってるわね。
While you're not wrong, it can get tense.
アリスが何回あんたの飲み物にメスカリンを入れてたかなんてもう覚えてないし、昨日なんか堂々とサラダの中に7かまどなんか混ざってるし。
Mescaline. I can't remember how many times she's put mescaline in your drink, and yesterday she was adding Rowan to your salad.
ほんと。あの子何考えてるんだろう。
Beats me what the hell she was thinking. A bitter smile spread across her face in reminiscence. The pages of her textbook continued to turn.
メスカリン？
Mescaline? What's that?
サボテンから取れるアルカロイドよ。アリスが使う以上、ただの幻覚剤じゃないでしょうけどね。と、私はこんなもんでいっか。
It's a hallucinogenic alkaloid produced by the peyote cactus. I'm assuming it's more than just your average hallucinogen if Alice is using it, though. I'm done. With that, she slammed shut her fourth textbook of the night. After having scarcely changed positions the whole night, she finally turned in her chair to face him.
さあ、今度はあんたを仕込まなくちゃね。
Now it's time to put you to work.
今日の4科目の答案、実に総十郎らしい出来栄えでそっと押しそうになったわ、私。
I can only imagine they were terrible considering he grew up in a mountain, isolated from everyone else. So isolated that he looks around as like, I don't know what any of the fucking shit is. I don't know what else I was expecting, but I almost fainted when I saw your test scores. Her tone was light, but her gaze was heavy as she stared at Sojiro, sitting cross-legged on the floor.
原告、地理、数学、電子工学。
Modern literature, geography, math, and electronics. Electronics, really?
あの調子であと2日続けたら冬休みが消えるのは当然でしょうね。そうなると困るのは私なのよ、実際。
If you don't up your grades over the next 2 days, your winter break is as good as gone. And there'll be more of a problem for me than you.
いや俺も困るぞ。休みなのに学校に行くのはなんか気が乗らない。
I disagree. I think it'll be worse. Going to school during the break would not work out for me. Sojiro calmly corrected her.
そりゃあ私のセリフだ。あんたが学校に行くってことは必然こっちまでとばっちりが来るっての。
For you, if you have to go to if you have to go to school over the break, what do you think will happen to me? All she could think about, as much as she tried not to, was Mr. Yamashiro and his annoying grin.
それ以前に私の目が黒いうちはオール赤なんてやつは許さない。
I cannot allow any student to fail every single class. Not on my watch.
本来なら少年から叩き直すところだけど。
If I could beat good grades out of you, I would.
あんたはいろいろ事情があるからとりあえず点数だけで勘弁してあげる。
Lucky for you, you have extenuating circumstances, shall we say? So I'll give you a pass just this once.
私もテストは一夜漬けで片付ける方だからあんた一人仕込むのにそう時間はかからないだろうし。
Good all-nighter is usually enough for me to prepare for exams, so it shouldn't take too long to get you caught up to speed either. Sojiro's expression openly soured in response to her declaration. It was obvious he didn't think he needed her meddling in his studies.
あんたね、苦労するのは私とあなたどっちだと思う？
Oh, please. Which of us do you think is going to have a harder time of it? Me or you? Sojiro got the feeling that it would be him, but he nodded slowly nonetheless. Then again, it would probably take more effort on her part than on his. And in any case, he knew there was no way to talk her out of it.
この度はご迷惑をおかけします。
I feel bad for making you do this. Sojiro summarily bowed his head to show gratitude and willingness to work. The way I said that, hold on. I feel bad for making you do this. The way I said it at first is more sarcastic than I feel like Sojiro would actually be.
よろしい。
Good.
安心なさい。私だって鬼じゃないから。
And don't worry, I'm not a demon, as they say.
別に平均点狙うってわけでもなし。予定通りこなしていけば3時には眠れるわよ。
You can get less than average marks and still pass. You'll probably be able to go to bed by 3. She nodded with satisfaction, pleased by her studious attitude. He had plenty of obstacles ahead of him, but the sense of humility might be enough to see him through.
って何仏心出してるんだ私。
Wait, what was I thinking? Can I afford to be this soft on you?
いいしずきくん。この後頼られちゃたまんないから釘刺しておくけど私がマンツーマンで誰かを仕込むなんてことめったにないから。
Yuki, let me be straight about this temporary arrangement. It's not every day off for private, one-on-one sessions like this.
これはあくまで異例中の異例だって覚えておいてね。
This is beyond fair, an exception among exceptions. And don't you go forgetting that. She spoke more to convince herself than him, but his expression still darkened. It made one want to hang a side around his... Hold on. It made one want to hang a side around his neck that... I think it's supposed to be side. There's not a lot of typos today. It made one want to hang a sign around his neck that read, "Please take me home," like an abandoned pet. Aoko chided herself for being so soft. For some reason, in that moment, she recalled that it had been raining the day they met each other. Time passed like the falling grains of an hourglass. Because that's how time works.
結局
We're done. Aoko squinted as light poured through the window as she downed another cup of tea. She lost count of exactly how many times she had drank long ago.
一晩かかったね、大崎。
And it only took the whole night, eh, Ozaki? Sojiro picked up on what she left unspoken. Aoko used up all her pep. In staying up all night, but also in shouting at him. He looked pale and uncomfortable, just like he had all night long.
ええ甘く見てたわあんたのことを
I underestimated you, Sojiro Suzuki.
だから、褒めても何も出ないって。
Come on, Ozaki, you don't get weird when you praise me.
ある意味褒めるに値するかもね
No, you deserve a pat in the head. She was at the end of her rope, but she couldn't help but she could not help the bit of pride that swelled up in her. His lack of even the most basic comprehension was shocking, even taking into account his upbringing in the wilderness. His ability was that of a middle school student, and that was being generous. Preparing him for exams by teaching him his new concepts and ideas was a waste of time. Rote memorization was his only hope for passing. Everything he memorized could collapse like a house of cards afterwards for all she cared, as long as he remembered this for exams. Assuming he had the capacity to be a good student in the first place had been her mistake. It took all night to cover the content for just 4 exams. She still didn't feel confident he could apply what he was so earnestly trying to memorize.
でもね真面目なのはいいことだけどあんた暗記するのに時間かかりすぎ
I appreciate your efforts, but you just take too long to memorize new information.
そこは多めに見てほしい。今まで頭より体で覚えることのが多かったんだ。
Come on, go easy on me. I'm used to learning things with my body, not my head. Aoko let out an exasperated sigh. Naturally, physical prowess mattered more in mountain life than the intellectual kind, but still.
まあいいわこれで山城からあんたの成績について相談されることもないでしょうし
Whatever. I think now you should do well enough to satisfy Yamashiro.
紅茶もう一杯入れてくれる
I'm making some more tea. Sojiro stood up and obeyed as Aoko stretched her aching back. She'd apparently bought the tea bags in bulk, so there was still plenty to use.
まったく、無駄遣いだな、青崎は。
Good grief. This is so wasteful, Aozaki. He spoke under his breath so she wouldn't hear. It made him somehow happy to see her so tired and unfocused after the grueling all-night session she had given him. It didn't cross his mind that the excess of tea bags, far from being an indulgent purchase, were purchased intentionally to sustain them through the night. A relaxed expression came across Aoko's face as she watched him, naive and peaceful as could be.
悪くないけどせめてリーフティーで入れられるように仕込まなくちゃダメかな
Not bad, but I should teach him how to make it from tea leaves instead. Seemed to have overheard her not-so-inner monologue, Sojiro made to face her.
やっぱり味は違うのか？
Does it make that much a difference?
違うもう全然
Yeah, big time.
正直私はどうでもいいんだけどアリスはねかなりお茶にはうるさいよ
No, honestly, I don't really care. Alice is the only one who's really picky about her tea.
そうだ宗十郎アリスとうまくいってる
Which reminds me, how are things going between you two? Aoko cheerfully slumped over the table, now covered in textbooks and scribbled notes. Sojiro watched her with a hint of resentment in his eyes.
彼女と会えるのは食事の時だけで、食事と言ったらあれだろ？どうやって仲良くなれって言うんだ？
We only ever see each other at dinner. You know how that goes. Honestly, I don't know why I should bother getting along with her at all.
そう私は十分脈ありだと思ったけど
Really? And here's me thinking you'd have lots of motivation to play
そ
nice.
っちはアリスを怖がってないしアリスはそっちを追い出す理由を見つけようと躍起になってるし
It's not like you're scared of her, for one. But she's looking for any reason to kick you out.
いい条件よ、これって。
Sounds like a great reason to make nice, if you ask me.
全然わからないな。
You sure about that?
あの子とこっちの関係は遊園地前の青崎と俺の関係と同じじゃないか。一体どこがいい条件なんだ？
To me, it feels a lot like me and you before everything at the amusement park. How's that a good reason?
とりあえず反目し合ってはいないでしょ。
My point is, there's no hostility between you, right?
一方通行の関係だけど、それはそれ。アリスにしちゃ上出来っていうか、理由を探している時点で可能性ありってね。
It's a one-sided relationship, but it's not actually that bad considering this is Alice we're talking about. You have a chance as long as she hasn't found a reason to off you.
あの子は反感に応えることが癖になっちゃってるから、大抵相手を自滅させちゃうのよ。
She's usually quick to respond to hostility, and it's her enemies that usually end up destroying themselves. Her ominous words only confused Sojiro further.
知ってしまえば単純な話なんだけどね、あの子の場合。
Once I understand that, it's actually pretty simple.
ただ、
Except whether or not he can put it into practice is another story altogether.
難しいよ、青崎は。
Sounds like a difficult situation then, Aozaki. He carried their teacups back to the table as he spoke. Aoko picked hers up and took a sip as if to dispel her exhaustion.
でも、確かに君の言う通りだ。
But I think you're right.
俺はまだあの子の顔しか知らない。クオンジ・アリスという名前すら定かじゃないのは問題があるね。
Still don't really know her at all. The problem is my knowledge of Alice Kuwanji ends in her name. He followed Aoko's lead and took a sip of his own. His cup contained not tea, but plain hot water.
ふーん。あの子のこと教えてほしい？
Well, you want me to tell you a little bit about her? Aoko scrutinized him carefully as she sat. Most boys would have been captivated by her gaze in that moment.
いや、そういうことは本人に聞いてあげるべきだと思う。
No. I'm starting to think I should ask her myself. But he ignored her and stared straight ahead as if speaking directly to Alice herself.
そうね。
Fine.
ほんと、あんたってアリス好みの対応をするわ。
You really want to do this her way, don't you?
ねえ、前から気になってたけど、客室でアリスに何を言ったの？いくら私との約束とはいえ、あの子が部外者を半日も放置するなんてありえないのよ。
Speaking of which, what exactly did you say to her in the guest room? I know she and I have an agreement, but I've never known her to just ignore a visitor for half a day. He thought back to that moment. He could recall only 2 or 3 words he had exchanged with Alice after awakening in the guest room. He didn't recall the conversation being anything special, but he can bring himself to casually share it with Aoko now. After all,
ねえ、どんなセリフであの子の気を変えたの？
hey, what did you say that had such an effect on her? Aoko eagerly pressed him for answers. Sojiro frowned, unsure of what to say. He didn't really know what the intention had been for Alice, but for him it felt special. Sacred almost. The question was, why and for whom was he so concerned?
ほら、白状しなさいってば。隠し事なんて似合わないわよ。
Come on, just tell me. I can tell you're dying to let it out. Her disconcerting smile moved even closer. Sojiro did not look like he was able to stay silent much longer. As he would eventually come to realize, Aoko Ozaki had sometimes troubling a propensity to gossip.
まあ、あの子と何を話したかは言わないけど。
Well, I can't tell you what we talked about.
今の青崎に比べれば、花もロマンもなかったのだけは確かかな。
Ooh. But I will say she wasn't as flirtatious as the way you are right now.
さっきまでは青崎が鬼みたいだったから、いいもんだなって気がつかなかった。
After how strict you were earlier, I didn't realize you had such a friendly side. He stared directly into her eyes as he spoke. Aoko nearly leapt out of her seat in panic. Now that he pointed it out, she realized their bodies were practically touching.
仕方ないでしょ。この方が効率良かったんだから。
So you noticed, huh? I was just using the most effective way to break you, after all. Right.
あんた、横にいないとすぐ間違えるし。
And besides, the moment you leave my side, all hell seems to break loose. Aoko stood up as she lashed back at him.
そうだね。なんか昔みたいで久しぶりに集中できた。
Yeah, you got me there. I haven't felt so focused in years.
これが異例中の異例っていうのが本当に残念だ。
Actually, a lot more than I thought you did. Too bad this is just an exception among exceptions.
余裕あるじゃない。その分じゃ今日のテストだけじゃなく、アリスとの話し合いもうまくいきそうね。宗十郎。
Well, look at you, Sojiro. Before you know it, you'll be acing your exams and your relationship with Alex.
あ、それはもちろん。
Oh, I will, Aozaki. Don't you worry. His cool response caught her off guard, and for a moment she was at a loss for words. She meant it sarcastically, but yet he responded with a warm smile.
方針変更だ。まずは近くで話しかけてみるよ。嫌なことはいずれ終わるって分かったから。
I'm going to change my strategy. First step, engage her directly. Can't stay mad at me forever, as they say. Aoko remained in a state of silent shock as he spoke and rose to his feet. She couldn't help but feel a reluctant respect for what seemed to be his newfound confidence and competence.
とりあえず今日は一人で帰ってアリスと話してみる。
I'll go home by myself today and speak to Alice.
青崎は放課後生徒会だろ？
You have a student council meeting after class anyway, right? He was right. It was the last meeting before winter break. Normally, he would have waited until the meeting ended, or else gone straight to his part-time job. This is part of Aoko's plan to make sure he and Alice were never alone in the mansion together.
待った。まさかあんた、一人でアリスとやり合うつもりなの？
Hold it. You mean you're planning to face Alice by yourself?
別にやり合うつもりはないぞ。し合っても勝てないだろう、アリスには。
You make it sound like we're gonna fight. I wouldn't stand a chance, and you know that. His reply made complete sense, but floored her.
でも、青崎がいたら話が複雑になるのは目に見えてるんだ。そんなわけで、今日はゆっくり飛び丸の相手でもしててくれ。
Even I can see things only get messy when you're around, Aozaki. That's why I'd appreciate it if you'd take your time with Tobimaru.
本気？
Are you serious? He felt like he was being tested, but not nonchalantly nonetheless. Knowing how grave the situation really was, Aoko wasn't sure how to respond to his apparent lack of concern. The morning light was coming through the window, marked a stark contrast between the two. Which stood bathed in light? Which lurked in darkness? That went without saying. The silence lasted only for a brief moment. Staring at him gravely, she said,
そう。なら止めはしないわ。
Fine. Then I won't stop you. That's all she said. Her dry tone hid the significance in their pregnant silence, not revealing the slightest sign of discord.
なんか怒ってないか、青崎。
And you're not angry, Nozaki?
別に。それで何か考えはあるの？下手な考えは通じないわよ、あの子には。
Yeah, I'm fine. But you got some kind of plan? You need a good plan of attack with her, you know. Sojiro furrowed his brow in deep thought. He knew it would be hard to get close to her through talk alone. In fact, it felt nearly impossible.
言葉で落ちないやつは物で釣れ。
Gifts work where words fail. Kinome had been the voice of wisdom and folly for him countless times in the past. Incidentally, Kinome had been referring to Aoko at the time that he shared that pearl of wisdom. But Sojiro had the distinct impression that trying to buy Aoko's kindness with gifts wouldn't end well.
だいたいアリスの趣味もわからないじゃないか。
I don't know what kind of stuff Alice is into. Well, you know she likes tea. And, like, the fancy kind.
考えてみると、今の自分と彼女はまるで接点がない。
Probably have almost nothing in common. Sojiro crossed his arms at a loss.
いつものことだけど、何も考えてなかったわけね。
In other words, you haven't got any plan as usual.
うん。でもまあ、あれこれ考えなくてもいいと思う。
Right. But I don't want to overthink this too much either.
アリスにはあれこれ説明するとか、分かってもらおうとか、そういうんじゃなくて、なんていうか。
It's not like I'm going to explain things to her and then she'll suddenly understand. I mean, he pondered intently as he tried to put his vague thoughts into something concrete. But he didn't spend much time in thought. With a nod, he concluded.
要は、俺が彼女を好きかどうかってことじゃないか?
I mean, what's more important is whether I like her or not, right? He articulated that which was often so hard to say, with surprising clarity and calm. It was certainly a prerequisite for the task he hoped to achieve. He had no hope of making her appreciate him with words, or with acts of giving, with the expectation of reciprocation. He simply wished to get to know her better because he liked her. That was his honest, uncontrived intention, and it reflected the purity of his heart. But whether it was in his best interest or not was another story altogether. Calculation and compromise, selfishness and conflict. Priorities such as his often irritated people who believed that morals went against human nature. Or rather, people were inevitably forced to believe it. Aoko silently walked away without responding to what Sojiro said. Her long hair swung from side to side as she passed him.
Ozaki?
Azaki? Noting her strangely cold manner, he called out to her. However, she was already opening the door to leave.
下でシャワー浴びてくるから、あなたは自分の部屋に戻ってて。
I'm gonna take a shower downstairs. You can go back to your room. Her words lacked any expressive inflection. In his confusion, all Sojiro could do was nod.
いいけど、やっぱり怒ってないか、青崎?
Okay. And you're sure you're not mad? Emotion returned to her face as he spoke. Yet it wasn't the typical irritated look to which he had grown so accustomed.
そうね。あんた流に言えば、多分私は怒ってる。
I guess it might be what someone like you would call mad.
何に対してのものかは、あんまり言いたくないけど。
I'd rather not discuss the reason why, though. Poor Sojiro didn't even realize that he himself was the reason. She looked at him and, for an instant, witnessed an emotion on her face. She looked at him and, for an instant, he witnessed an emotion on her face of which he had never seen the likes of before.
じゃあね。これが最後になるかもしれないから、お別れぐらいは言っておくわ。
See you. This might be the last time we meet, so I should say goodbye.
あなたはアリスを甘く見すぎてる。
You take Alice far too lightly, you know.
でも、それが同時にあんたの強みなのよね。私たちには毒にしかならないけれど。
For you it's a strength, but for us it's pure poison. The door slammed shut loudly behind her. It also sounded like she ran away. Her steps were audible as she walked away on the other side of the wall. No, it definitely sounded like she was running. The corridor must have been nearly freezing without any central heating, but Aoko seemed perfectly comfortable.
なんで私から出ていくんだ
Wait, why am I leaving
順
first?
番が逆普通先に出てくのはそっちじゃない
This is all backward. It's my room. You leave first. Aoko promptly kicked Sojiro out of her room. Once again, the wooden door closed with a slam. The corridor wasn't as cold as he expected, actually. Not quite as bad as a freezer, at least. Second day of exams ended, and Sojiro was on his way back to the mansion. The road grew steeper, and the woods thicker as he made his way up the familiar slope. Actually, hold on. Okay, yes. Can I just jump back one more? Yeah. I'm gonna save here. Because it's a 2 hours, and I feel like the confrontation with Alice. I'm starting to get tired. I forgot her name. It's been 2 hours, and I feel like the confrontation Alice would make a good opener, or at least a very interesting cliffhanger. So I'll leave it there. Man, I don't get all-nighters. Okay, so there's two things that I don't really get, but I'll group them together because they so often are. I don't get all-nighters and I don't get energy drinks. Neither seem to work for me. I get too sleepy to focus on anything, no matter what I've done or am doing. So all-nighters just don't work out for me. And energy drinks, bad. I don't mesh well with them. On Sunday, I bought a normal-sized can of Monster to keep me awake as I did what's it called, the Lobotomy Corp session, which watch it or don't, it's fine. I'm just letting you know it's there. I still have that exact same Monster because I only tape sips of it. And like it doesn't help either way. It just sits there, and the taste never gets any better. The energy doesn't hit me at any point. It doesn't make me feel any more awake. If I'm ever awake, it's because they're like, oh god, it tastes terrible. Oh shit, interesting. I don't know. It's just a thought that I had after a friend was like, I'm 3 monsters deep into a bad habit again. Please, somebody tell me to stop. And I'm like, what? How did you even get that far? I don't know. It's not for me. I'm not the crowd, I guess. But I'll see you guys next time. That's making a jump. Hope you guys have a lovely rest of your day, rest of your week. Hope you're all taking care of yourselves. Get proper sleep. I don't think all-nighters work, honestly. Even just the rote memorization stuff, I think it's too late to retain anything, really. So, whatever. I see you guys later. Take care. Bye now. Janin.